Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. In each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and discussions with top restoration industry leaders. We're also going to delve into their business, the strategies that made them successful, and most importantly, the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Clinton James. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer at Water Restoration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping restoration companies nationwide secure more high-value water jobs. Now, this show, it aims to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the restoration industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And welcome, folks, back to another episode of the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. I am your host, Clinton. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer with Water Restoration Marketing. Today, I am joined by a new client of mine, Nathan Dubien. Nathan, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Nathan, we're going to talk a little bit about your experience with setting up HydroDry Restoration. I think you really have a unique story of how you transitioned into the restoration industry, and I know you've had a bunch of great wins in the last few months, including a brand new baby. So, congratulations on that.
Thanks. He's actually a month old today.
A month old today. Now, this is a good client. He literally sent me pictures of his baby, his newborn baby. I love to see it. Love to see it. All right. Before we go too deep, Nathan, introduce the audience to your company, where you're located, and the restoration services that you provide.
Yeah, so Nathan Dubien with HydroDry Restoration. We're based out of Manchester, New Hampshire. So we're covering pretty much all of southern New Hampshire and a little bit into Massachusetts. Doing all the typical stuff: water, fire, mold, remediation, all that basic stuff, and then we're actually starting to do rebuilds and reconstructions as well. So I don't think you know that, do you, Clinton?
No. So when we first started working together, you were a mid-only guy, right? You just wanted to do the mitigation. You weren't necessarily super excited about doing the rebuild work. What changed?
Yeah, so pretty much I was getting some calls, and I actually lost one job because I didn't do it all in one, right?
Okay.
And I was starting to see the stars kind of aligned. So then I live in an apartment, and a guy that lives 3 doors down from me, he's built custom homes nearby for the past 10 years. And he was looking for a switch right around that same time. And I was like, I got something for you, bye.
All right, that's the perfect team member. We're going to talk a little bit more about adding that additional service and kind of what went into that. But before we do, why don't you tell the audience what you were doing before you started HydroDry?
Yeah, so I was actually I was on the dark side. I was an insurance adjuster. I had been doing that for about, in some form or capacity, about 9 years. So I was doing a lot of catastrophe work, traveling the country, going down to Florida after hurricanes, stuff like that. So I was very familiar with the restoration side of things. It was just on the insurance side of it.
Okay. So why make the change from traveling the country? Because some people like that road life, right? Why make the change from traveling the country, doing as an adjuster, to actually owning a restoration company? What went into that decision?
Yeah, so it was a couple things. So obviously, we were planning for my son who's now here. So I was kind of like pre-planning some of that. And I mean, the other selfish side of it, I mean, I was seeing the checks that I was writing to all these restoration company, and before I was an adjuster, my dad was a general contractor. He used to do like kitchen and bathroom remodels and stuff like that. So, I've learned a lot from him over the years too. So I figured if, I can kind of use my knowledge to that with him and my experience in the insurance, side of it, and kind of bring it all together. And it's turned out to be a perfect combination for me so far.
So let's talk about that experience and how it has played a role in the restoration business. Coming from the insurance side of things, do you think that has positioned you well to, one, work as an advocate for the homeowner or the business owner that you're doing the restoration services for?
1000%. Yeah. Like, I was done with insurance. Like, I knew it wasn't like that wasn't my end goal, being an adjuster the rest of my life. But with that being said, so glad I did that for so long because like the knowledge and the experience that I've had over the years. And while I was like an independent adjuster, I worked with so many different carriers. So it allows me to, I kind of know the back end of it too, like what policies cover what, and I can kind of lead our customers in the right direction as far as, if it's a sump pump backup, like before they even call and file a claim and get that on their policy, I can have them pull it up on their phone. I can tell them if they have that coverage or not.
I like that.
Stuff like that. So kind of save them a claim on their record, and then I can even help them through the way, as much as I legally can, at least.
All right.
So,
So definitely helps you to be a better advocate on behalf of the policyholder. On the flip side of that, how has been being an insurance adjuster in the past helped you in terms of maximizing what you're making on each one of these jobs?
yeah, so it goes both ways, kind of like what you're insinuating. So, working for all these different carriers, like as an independent adjuster, okay, they're probably not going to pay for this, but they'll pay for that instead. So it kind of limits that back and forth. And then as a business owner, it also allows me to maximize my billing, in certain areas. And I think we've been pretty successful with that so far.
Now, since you've been in their shoes before, working on these various claims with homeowners and business owners when you're going through the restoration process, have you had any adversarial experiences with any insurance adjusters?
Yeah. So it, I was actually talking to my wife about this last week. When I was an insurance adjuster, like I was kind of laid back, right? Like I knew to pick what battles I needed to pick, what things I should let slide, things like that. But I'm learning pretty quickly that that is not always the case. So it's to answer your question, like, yes, there are some things where they just straight up deny. Like, for instance, this is kind of going on the rebuild side. I removed some flooring, and I proved to them the customer saved the box. They only installed it like a year ago. They had leftover flooring. So I had the box. I had the exact flooring that was down there. And this major carrier was only paying $2 a square foot, and I was able to prove that it's like $3.50 a square foot, and they're refusing to change it for whatever, so it's stuff like that and that's the stuff that frustrates me, and I think that's what gives insurance companies a bad name, or the few bad apples in those scenarios where you're proving everything you need to prove, and they're still refusing to pay that. So yeah, it can be a hassle if you're not familiar with that side of things or how to navigate those issues.
So you when you decided you were going to get out of being an adjuster and start a restoration company, obviously you had options, right? So a lot of people choose to go out, hang their own shingle, start their own business, be their own support system, kind of do everything in terms of getting the business off the ground. Other folks decide to go the franchise path, right? Did you ever consider potentially buying into the franchise model?
So I did. I interviewed like a few franchises and whatnot. At the end of the day, for me, like I felt like I knew enough to really get up and running on my own. And for me personally, the costs associated with going the franchise route for the lifetime you own that business wasn't worth it in the long run for me. So kind of what I'm doing is, and we've talked about this too, is like I pay for consultants in areas that I'm like unfamiliar with, and I'm doing that on the front end. I may not do that for the next, I may not be doing that 5 years from now, but as my own business owner, I'm not stuck to those franchises guidelines. I'm not stuck paying them for however long I own the business. So I'm able to make those decisions and kind of go the route I want to, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I will say this because, about a third of my clients right now for my digital marketing agencies are franchisees. And I think the franchise model is ideal for some people stepping into the restoration space. Folks that don't have the experience that you have on the insurance side of the business, or folks that literally have never worked as a general contractor. They're getting out of some corporate job. they don't have any idea what a dehumidifier is or an air mover or how to do contamination there, right? So I think that those franchise models are ideal for those folks because they really do need a little more hand-holding as they're getting in the industry, learning what they need to do on a day-to-day basis to grow a successful business there. So
Yeah, I do agree with that statement. I mean, if I were getting into this without the experience that I had, like I don't I know I wouldn't be as successful as I have been so far. So I mean, it's definitely beneficial for a lot of people with that.
So I wanna give the audience a little context here. You just started what month last year did you start this business? Actually started.
Yeah, we went live Black Friday to be exact. That's what I keep telling everyone. Black Friday of 2024.
So you've been in business less than 5 months at this point. Okay. Um, but you're off to a rocking start. And I will talk a little bit about the role that my agency has played in that start, but I want before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of coaching and consulting because you've invested in that. And that is part of the reason that you're having the successes that you're having very early in the business. So talk a little bit about how you selected the coaching group that you work in, who they are, and kind of what they brought to the table for you.
Yeah, so it all started so back when we were first talking, like before I was even on with you guys, I was reading a book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Restoration Mastermind by Alex Duda. Yeah. So I have and like back then when I was reading that book, that's the same time I was interviewing you, and because if you read that book, like the first fishing pond that you do is your online marketing and who maximize that, and then you go to the next. So I read that book. I've been following, I'd say 90% of it to the T. But so yeah, I read that book. And then as I was doing more research, joining like online groups, Alex actually created like a consulting, it's called Evolve Mastermind. And we meet every week on Thursdays. And it's restoration companies from $5 million plus down to people who haven't even like started their business yet. So it's really good networking. Like I'm going to Chicago on the 14th to meet with a bunch of other restoration companies, and we're just kind of throwing ideas, in each other's way. Like I've made so many connections from this group from across the country, and people have ideas. Like people are doing stuff in Washington State that I haven't even thought of doing here in New Hampshire. So you get what I mean. So not only is it good for that networking, but we meet every week, and they're always teaching us something new from scraping the web for plumbers, so that we can go get plumber referrals to y I can go on. Like, it's been great.
As a person that has invested in a lot in masterminding and those kind of groups for my agency, I completely see the value, right? Even if you think you know everything, to be in those rooms and have conversations with all these other restoration companies that are at different stages, right? It's a lot different, the problems that experienced by an owner operator, right? Where you've got maybe one or two service vehicles, made a couple good hires there versus a guy that's doing, $5, $10 million a year in business there. But it's important for you to be able to hear those conversations so that you could avoid some of the pitfalls that those guys have seen in the past. And I'm sure you are just flushed with questions because even though you understand the insurance and maybe you even understand what it's like to do mitigation work and rebuild, there's probably questions in terms of, insurance policies for the business, right? Where's the best place to get your service vehicles wrapped? What kind of wrap should I get, right? The little things like that, there's no better person to ask than either a coach that's put together a group or the members of that group. So I'm glad you have that resource. I had a chance to meet with one of the coaches in that program today. Matt, if you were listening to this, definitely looking forward to sending some business his way because it seems like those guys over at Evolve really have their stuff together. So
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And then we also have like we have an app that we're all in. So like if for instance, I wanted to do my own pack out a while back, and I wanted to get an inventory sheet, and I had it within an hour from someone. Yeah, so I mean, so it's stuff like that. And if I wasn't a part of that, I would have been making my own Excel sheet. I would have been wasting hours on it. So, it's an investment, but it also pays itself off, just by sharing, everyone's. experience.
Well, you brought up the investment word there. And when we first met, you were interviewing me and my agency to potentially have us become your digital marketing partner. Great process. You had listened to the podcast before. So when you showed up, we had a great conversation. And ultimately, you did elect to use my agency. Really quickly, this isn't a plug for my agency, but if you would kind of walk through what you've experienced, because we did your website, we've done your Google business profile, we are running paid ads for you, and now we're also doing SEO. So we're super excited to be doing those services, but talk a little bit about your experience working with my team and kind of the results that you've been able to see over the last few months.
Yeah, so it's been great. So when like I said, we went live on Black Friday, and the month of December, I was it was great. I mean, most of the work that I got that first month was from you guys. I think I did over for you guys that first month, I did over $20,000 in revenue, and that's just from you guys. And then so that was December. January, we did over 50,000 from you guys. And then February, there's a little more, like I got a few plumber referrals from like my other efforts that I was doing, but February we actually broke 100,000.
Man.
And
Third month already clearing six figures in revenue, man. Congratulations to you. Now, I know my agency's digital marketing has played a little role in that, but that's not the only way you're getting jobs, right? So talk a little bit about some of the other strategies that you've implemented to get some quick wins, build some referral partners, something that's bringing some additional jobs to the table right now.
yeah, so a few things. So what I will say, I know you're not trying to throw a plug for your digital marketing company, but you guys have like you've probably been about 70% of what coming in. So I'll say that since you don't want to.
Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it.
Other than that, I mean, I've just been hitting the ground. So like if I'm out on a job or I'm going from job to job and I see a plumber's office, I stop. Like I don't care what time of day it is. I stop. I talk with people. And this is actually a cool story. So I got a lead from you for a condo owner. So the bathroom upstairs leaked into this guy's bathroom, turned into a really good job. So I show up in my wrapped van. He The people upstairs are obviously involved. They see my van. So I end up doing their unit,
Ah,
and the property manager wants my certificate of insurance. I give that to her. I got another job for some insulation through her. And then today, people saw our van while we were there doing work, and I'm starting a mold job for them on Friday.
man,
But
that's what I'm talking about.
yeah, so like it was a lot of like just hitting the ground, just really just everything.
So hold on. You talked about the van wrap, right? Because I've had these conversations with these guys that maybe have been in business for less than a year and they don't have their service vehicles wrapped. They don't see it as them losing out on business. And I think a good truck wrap can generate some work for you for sure. And it sounds like you've seen that.
Yeah, I was skeptical at first. I mean, because it's an investment. It's a lot of money to wrap a van. But I think if you're hesitant on wrapping your van, just do it. And I recommend going out on like even if it's obnoxious, you just want to drive a billboard. It's exactly what it is. Like I bought a full van wrap. Like there's not a portion of my van that's not wrapped that doesn't have something on it, and it's just outlining everything I do. Um, it's my van is so good. I got a call about my bad driving the other day. Like,
And all right, Nathan, stop driving that in the company vehicle there. Um, okay. Well, man, I before we go, a couple things I want to talk about. First is recently adding Rebuild as a service there. So I know guys that have been doing this for years that are considering adding Rebuild, and I'll tell you what I hear, and then we'll talk a little bit about your experience. So one of the reasons I hear that people are hesitant to add Rebuild work is because of the costs. Because you have to have working capital to cover labor, to cover material costs, and you're not getting all that money immediately from the insurance company before you start actually doing the rebuild work there.
nice.
So, cash flow is always a concern when you add on a service like that. The other thing I hear is when you do mitigation and you leave the house after a mitigation job, man, you're the hero. Nobody really complains about that. But when you go back in there and you do that rebuild work, when you leave that job, homeowners always got something that they're nitpicking at there. So, did either one of those thoughts cross your mind when you decided to add this additional service?
All of those have crossed my mind. So, I mean, one thing that I personally did was so when like, you know this, and we started, like, it was just me when I started, so I didn't have a ton of overhead. Really, my overhead was marketing and, vehicles and stuff like that. So, I did about a month, probably 2 months of no rebuild, and, so 'cause I was worried about that, the whole cash flow portion of it and all that, so, luckily, that hasn't been an issue for me, and I don't think it will, so just you're being right. You're right with what you say, where you need to have, the money to kind of buy the materials, front the labor. If you're subbing it out, like, don't make your subs wait 30, 60 days to get paid. Just, pay them quick so they come back and do good work. And then the other side of it with the customers, like, it is the whole different beast, you know? Like, because when you do the mitigation, you come, extract all the water, clean it up, do demo and you're done. Like, yeah, they love you at that point. But um, my biggest saying, and it always has been, is just being more, being proactive, not reactive. So most of these customers, you can tell ahead of time if they're going to be kind of difficult on certain things and whatnot, and kind of identifying those issues on the front end and adapting as you go, or kinda addressing those before, is great. And what's good about the guy that I hired, he complements my skill set. So he's been in the construction side for the same time, with the hands-on and the project management experience for just about as long as I've been on the insurance side doing that thing. So it to be completely honest with you, if it wasn't for me finding him and, us really just aligning with processes and making things work, I probably wouldn't have done it this soon, but it just kinda worked out that way, and everything happens for a reason, so
Absolutely. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. It sounds like you happen to have the perfect neighbor to help elevate your restoration business. All right, two more things. One, why don't you share a funny story about an experience that you've had with a homeowner now that you're on the restoration side of the business?
oh, man. A funny story.
Funny, fulfilling, just something that may have either made you laugh, made you cry, kind of tugged at your heartstrings. You got to have one because you've done some work here in the last few months.
Yeah, so this is actually, I didn't bring this up to you. So actually, the first customer that it's actually kind of sad, but it's fulfilling at the same time. The first customer I ever had was from you guys, and his wife actually passed away 2 days prior, and he woke up to a flooded basement.
Oh,
And, like, it was just one of those things. Like, it was, everything's collapsing at once for this guy, and being able to, like, just go in there, and I was I went to his house, and there was no way he could ignore this. Like, he was dealing with services and everything like that, but he also had, like, 2 inches of water throughout his basement, and I was pretty much just like, "Look, I know you have a lot going on. Let me deal with this, and we can deal with the specifics. Bill, let's wait a couple weeks, like, but let's
huh?
fix this." So I it was probably about a week and a half. He got through, like, the funeral and stuff like that, but I know that's not really funny, but
Well, that was fulfilling.
it was nervous on my end, because it was honestly my first job ever. And I was like, if I mess this up, like, that's that much worse. But, it's good to be able to go into someone's house and build trust with them to where allow you to do essentially demo their house, and while they're going through one of the worst things of their life, and, you're there to help them at the end of the day. And, I actually he was one of the guys I called when my son was born a month ago. Like, he's just a super sweet older guy, like, just you're making all these friendships.
Ah, All right, you can't get sentimentally attached to every homeowner that you help, but you have to think of it. That's part of the reason we got into this business, right? You have an opportunity to not only make a living and take care of your family, but you also have a great opportunity to help people in your community in their biggest time of need, right? And a lot of those people, that home is the biggest asset they have. It's not just an asset; it's where they raise their kids. It's where they love their spouse. So I like that story. It's better than a funny story. It reminds us all of kind of, the the value that restoration companies bring there.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Before we let go, you are a great success story of somebody who just started and really was able to hit the ground running. Give our audience, anybody that's listening, that's like literally on the cusp of just starting their restoration journey. Give them two pieces of advice. What are the two things you think that they should do to set them up for success so that they're hitting six-figure months within the first 3 or 4 months of being in business?
Yeah, I just think your online presence is like one of the most important things that you can do. When I was talking with Clinton, I mean, told when I was interviewing Clinton, I told him very bluntly, like, it's a lot of money, and I'm like, I'm nervous being a new business owner. You know what I mean? Like it's a huge investment, and it can be scary, but just do it. Like the investment in your marketing with the right agency will make or break you. And I've talked to some people that it's broken or come close to. And then just just perseverance. Like you gotta, if you're not working at a job, you need to be working to get a job. So
Love that.
it's not a 40-hour week. If you need to go out your plumbing supply store at 6 a.m. All the plumbers are walking in and hand them cards. Really anything to get business in, talk to realtors, property managers, just go out there. That's really the best advice I can give you aside from the online presence.
All right. Well, I can't help people with their hustle. They got to have that inside, but I can, if they need it, help them with their online marketing. So if anybody's interested, and Nathan's a great case study of mine. If you're interested in kind of improving your online presence and getting more water jobs off the internet, always reach out to Water Restoration Marketing. You can find us at waterrestorationmarketing.com or .net. I have both of them now. So, Nathan, I want to thank you again for making the time. We've tried to do this a couple times. Then you had a baby. Then you got busy. So I'm glad we were able to do this, my friend. I'm super excited for you. And I know the best is yet to come, man.
No,
So,
we're just getting started.
all right. So for the audience, if you enjoyed today's interview with Nathan, you love hearing these success stories. You also like hearing the guests and the discussions that we have about other things that are impacting the restoration space. Please like, subscribe, share, leave a review. Until the next episode, Nathan, thank you. Thank you, audience. We'll be back. You guys stay safe, stay dry, and I hope you guys stay as busy as my man, Nathan. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more interviews and discussions with restoration industry leaders really soon. In the meantime, if you're a restoration company looking to add more high-value water jobs, you can reach me and my team at waterrestorationmarketing.net. Again, that's waterrestorationmarketing.net. I look forward to hearing from you soon.